There's a way of doing that. Nobody comes to the stadium. Put the players in big hotels, wherever you want to play. Keep them very well surveilled. Have them tested every single week and make sure they don't wind up infecting each other or their family, and just let them play the season out. Very interesting take there. Stephen A., what's your reaction?
I appreciate Dr. Fauci's comments. Obviously, he's the renowned expert on infectious diseases. We know his resume very, very well because we see him all the time. And he presented an option upon which the sports world can return to action. Remember, he emphasized that there would be no fans in attendance. You cannot have that. That the players need to be secluded, that the players need to be tested. And ultimately, what you're pointing to is that even though it's going to be a compromising situation, make no mistake about it, for professional athletes to perform in empty arenas, empty stadiums, et cetera, the millions upon millions of people that would be watching on TV would give a tremendous boost to the economy. I'm not thinking about the players, and I'm thinking about everybody in terms of their health. But I'm not thinking about games. I'm not thinking about entertainment. I'm thinking about the thousands upon thousands of people who are employed in the world of professional sports that would be without a job in the event that sports doesn't return for a lengthy period of time. And I applaud the fact that, you know, whether it's the president or whomever else is involved, the Adam Silvers of the world, Mark Cubans of the world, Roger Goodell and others, this is not going to be some unilateral decision. The experts, the people that would know a thing or two about all of this, along with the medical professionals, obviously, would play a significant role in reaching this decision. And so as long as it goes down that way, I'm totally comfortable with what Dr. Fauci suggested.
I love that he said this because it kind of validates my own thinking about it. So I feel good about that, Stephen A. It seemed to me from the beginning, common sense says as long as the tests are widely available, and that's really what we're waiting on here, and there's strict quarantining, and he talked about surveillance, so like you know that they're really quarantining. And that may mean away from their families, by the way. I don't see why you can't have sports. To me, the ethical question has always been the fact that you would be taking tests away from people who may really need them, and it's an issue of life and death in order to play a sport. But once the tests become more widely available, then that's great. That's the reason I supported what Dana did. He got his hands on some tests, and people could say, well, how did he get those tests? It doesn't take that many to test for a fight card, for example. I think boxing could do it. Golf, maybe tennis, depending on how that's regulated. Because the lower the number of tests, the easier it should be to do. And once you do that, if you quarantine and are strict about it, I don't see why not. There's a very good argument. It's good for public morale, for national morale. So I'm glad to hear that he said this. And this is a guy who's worked for countless administrations now. So his advice never seems political. It always seems to be based on medical expertise. And so for him to say this, I think is very encouraging for sports fans. And as I've always maintained, there's you know, in addition to this, a good, even ethical argument for why it's okay for sports leagues to pursue tests, so long as it's not an issue of life and death for others. So long as they become more widely available, maybe even out of proportion to the rest of society, for lack of a better term, because I think there is great kind of value in the diversion of sports during a national crisis.
Well, my biggest thing is let's be careful with the word ethical, because obviously if you want to apply it to an administration or whatever the case may be, and you want to challenge what their thinking is in terms of the verbiage emanating over the national airwaves, that would be different. But what I'm saying is that let's not act like thinking about things economically is unethical, because the fact of the matter is economics is what determines people's quality of life, the life that they do have, the life that they ultimately will have. We can't ignore that. Some people's priorities are different than others. That's the world that I come from. Of course you want testing. Of course that should be a priority. Of course the overall health of us as a society and every single human being's lives matter. We understand that. But you do have a situation where if they keep throwing this information out there, it's going to be about a year. before we find a vaccine. Now it becomes testing as a priority. And if testing is the priority, you have some people out there that have been appalled at the notion that professional athletes and professional sports teams would have access to tests. But my point is, if they employ thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people, that does matter, and it warrants a conversation as opposed to it being summarily dismissed as unethical to take that into consideration.
Stephen A., I appreciate that point of view in the sense that when you say don't politicize this, a politician's job really and the politics of a situation means the calibrating of various interests, including the point of view of medical professionals, business professionals, et cetera. But I think generally, that's philosophically, but generally in practice the way this works is that the economic influence has an outsized influence on the political sphere. And so there's a real concern that the kind of collection of enormous amounts of capital, the very, very wealthy and powerful, can influence the politics of this in a way that is simply unsafe. That is the issue. That's why the president of the American Medical Association had to come out recently and independently put something out through the AMA. Hey, let's listen to the medical experts here, not the people who have overly politicized this. Though I appreciate your philosophical point. I think that until tests are more widely available than they are now, we won't see sports. But once they are, I think that we can see sports.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.